Ep24 presents Tiny Tales of Transformation. Episode 24, A Culture of Transparency. A successful transformation depends on a resource rarer than budget, more fragile than the plan, and more decisive than the methodology. It depends on trust. And trust, in turn, is built on transparency. During a transformation, the company is undergoing a change of regime. Sometimes employees are faced with contradictory signals linked to economic pressure, more volatile customer expectations, or technologies that are reshaping roles and professions. In these conditions, transparency becomes a stabilizing mechanism. It reduces the scope for interpretation and lowers mental load. When useful information circulates, human energy shifts from speculation to execution. Transparency acts first and foremost as a steering system. Transformation requires synchronization between business lines and IT, between operations and support functions, and between internal teams and external partners. This synchronization is based on a shared view of reality. When reality remains unclear, everyone navigates as best they can with the understanding of the system. Optimization is only performed on bits and pieces of the value chain, and decisions are made in corridors. Conversely, when reality is described and shared, the organization gains speed because decisions rest on shared facts and course corrections happen early at the right level. Transparency is therefore judged on the quality of the following elements, not just on the sheer quantity of communication. The first element is context. Teams need a coherent understanding of the situation, a fact-based narrative that links signals from the field to decisions at the top. The key is for everyone to understand what is really changing, to perceive where the sticking points lie, and to identify the constraints on execution. This visualization of the situation also makes it possible to grasp the room to maneuver and opportunities created by the ongoing transformation. You should convey a message linking strategy to operations that translates economic issues into priorities and then into concrete choices. Raw data, even if it is accurate, in itself is not sufficient. The context of transparency transforms information into the capacity to act. The second element is decisions. Resistance to change often stems from a certain ambiguity in decision-making. A decision that is communicated and understood triggers alignment, even among those who preferred another option. On the other hand, a decision that is not understood triggers ongoing debate, half-hearted implementation, and reinterpretation. A good level of transparency includes exposing the decision-making framework. What are the underlying criteria, the compromises made, the logic behind trade-offs, and the planned reviews? When the organization is able to see the rationale, it is more accepting of the outcome and will likely contribute more effectively to the implementation. The third element is real progress. Transformations drift when progress becomes just a narrative. A culture of transparency relies on tools that make progress tangible by comparing planned milestones with demonstrated progress. You must aim to reduce the gap between what is promised and what is proven. All stakeholders should see progress in light of the real conditions of execution and understand what makes the roadmap sustainable. At this stage, transparency requires emotional discipline. An organization can handle difficult truths well when these truths come with direction, with a plan, and with room for questions to clarify gray areas. Leaders who inspire trust, provide complete information at the right frequency, speak with precision, and then listen. They are willing to say, here's what's still uncertain, and here's what we're going to decide, because this stance transforms uncertainty into process, and thereby into safety. Transparency also plays a central role in innovation. Technology creates anxiety. Will my job disappear, deteriorate, or move elsewhere? Vague talk about the technological future fuels mistrust. Useful transparency describes scenarios for the transformation of roles and their associated skills, the timeline for change, and support mechanisms. From there, people are usually more willing to take risks, to experiment, and continuous improvement becomes legitimate once more. And finally, the subject of transparency has strong HR dimension to it. Transparency must be embedded in people management processes with clear performance expectations, progress measurement criteria, recognition policies, and a formalized way to develop talent. When these rules become clear, the company strengthens optimism and commitment because everyone can plan ahead, see their own impact, and invest in change with interest. Corporate transformation is complex. A culture of transparency supports success because it converts anxiety into insight, insight into decisions, and decisions into implementation. As part of its efforts to establish a culture of transparency, Ep24 acts as a trusted third party and the architect of the means to promote transparency as a culture. We begin by assessing the situation, observing management practices, information flows, and the way in which decisions are explained and understood. On this basis, we work with the sponsor to establish clear rules of the game regarding what needs to be made visible, at what frequency, with what evidence, and how employees can speak up if they need to. We then put in place the tools and routines that make transparency practicable on a daily basis by helping leaders craft messages and by turning committees into the space for clarification and arbitration. Finally, we measure the adoption of these practices and correct any deviations. Then, we transfer the method to you so that the culture of transparency and trust become a fundamental and lasting value of the company. Want to find out more? Join us on alpionys.ch. alpionys.ch.